You don't have much longer to trade for this asset in Dynasty because you need to trade for it by the NFL draft for this reason. Most people, and I talked about this last week on a video, and you are free to push back anywhere you want to, by the way. Like, we can totally disagree on this if you want to. But most people, in my opinion, most trade calculators, most Dynasty players are not correctly adjusting for the value of one asset in Dynasty Fantasy Football this year. And the asset that we're going to be talking about that you should potentially be going and sending deals for is a late first. Let's talk about some deals you can send for a late first in a minute. But right now, when I type in the 110 on Keep Trade Cut, this is going in what is equivalent to like a 6th or 7th round pick in Dynasty. So you've got Kenneth Walker, George Pickens, let's see, who else? Kenneth Walker, George Pickens, James Cook, Bryce Young, Josh Jacobs, Debo, Jaden Reed. So that's mid 6th to the 7th round. And then as you get into the 111 and the 112, you're even deeper into that range in the Rashad White, Kirk Cousins, Baker Mayfield. Okay, so those are some value adjacent players for what is like the 110, 111, 112. We're talking the really like the true late first. The 109 being fringe, the 110 through 112 being late first. So let's talk about this and why you should be trading for these picks. And normally, I personally am not a proponent of trading for rookie picks this close to the draft. Really not. Right now is the time where we tell people to hold their rookie picks in their team blueprints, right? We say, hold your rookie picks till the draft, and then there reaches a threshold where it's like, now you're good to sell. We are within the threshold where now you can sell rookie picks and you're going to be getting a pretty good price with all the hype going on. I really have never been a proponent of trading for rookie picks before the draft, this close especially. We are 5 days out. I am a proponent, personally, and we'll talk about both sides of trading for late 24 first in your rookie drafts or in your dynasty leagues right now. For this reason, I believe and I hold the belief that this class is significantly deeper from a value insulation standpoint than we've seen in the past. So
which isn't new news.
Which is not new news. But yes, that's not new news. What is new news to me and what was surprising to me was that the values didn't adjust. And they really haven't adjusted because and I'll get to that. So let's talk about the top end of Dynasty rookie drafts this year. And let's talk about, we're going to talk about everything's hypothetical, right? So you have to take all of this with a grain of salt. It could all fall through. But with that being said, here are the guys that I am fairly confident are going to get first round NFL draft capital no matter what. Fairly confident. And let's count them if we could keep track of them on the screen. Caleb Williams is one. I'm 100% sure. Harrison, 100% sure. Neighbors, Daniels, Odunze, Drake May, and Brock Bowers. So I am at 7 guys. I am 100% sure these guys are going to get first round NFL draft capital. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay. So 7 guys. Now let's talk about this next tier of guys because there's really not been a tier drop off for us. We have Caleb Marv up at the top, and then you have our S2 tier where we have a big tier of guys. This big tier of guys includes a lot of people. So let's talk about the guys after the 7 guaranteed. So if you have a top 7 pick in rookie drafts, you're getting somebody with not only like first round, but most of these guys are probably going to go top 15 most likely. Let's move on to the next tier. Brian Thomas Jr. I'm like 90% sure he's getting first round draft capital this year. Agree?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's 8. So we're at the 108 now, and through the 108, you've gotten a first round receiver, tight end, or quarterback in a Superflex league. Now you move on to guys like Adonai Mitchell. We haven't even mentioned J.J. McCarthy. J.J. McCarthy is a guy I'm probably 70% sure is getting first round draft capital in the NFL draft. Would you put it around 60 or 70 there?
You're really asking me this question?
Sorry. But,
sure.
Okay. You think that's reasonable?
Yes.
Okay.
I think it's reasonable.
I think I'm being reasonable. Like, I would honestly put it higher than that, but I'm going to be reasonable to split the difference.
No, it's reasonable because even though I think there's a chance that he falls, any QB, even like if Nixon Penix were to go in the second round, like that means they are really technically worthy to go at some point in the first round too. So,
but if you're keeping track, that's 9 guys. Okay. So now, I think absolute worst case scenario here, you have 9 guys that are going to be drafted in the top 9 of Superflex leagues go in the first round, go on night 1 on Thursday night of the NFL draft, okay? 9. So that means at the 110, now if the worst case scenario for, draft capital insulation, which again, landing spot does matter. Landing spot does play into a player's value. However, when you're talking about owning and drafting a dynasty rookie, the value insulation is mostly determined by the draft capital. So when you have these guys getting first round draft capital, their value insulation is going to be pretty good. So
that's 4 QBs, 4 receivers, and 1 tight end.
Yes. Yep.
That we're confident
We're very
Regardless
confident.
of where the tiers fall, those are going to be consensus pretty much top 9.
So now, let's talk about this.
Unless you have, second round running
In
back.
this next group of guys here that could go in the first, could not. Let's name them. Adonai Mitchell, projected first round, could go, could not. Michael Penix, could go, could not. Quarterback. But if he's a quarterback, he's jumping up.
Yep.
Xavier Worthy, could go, could not. Who knows? Ladd McConkey has been in that conversation as well. So that's 4 guys there. 1 quarterback and 3 receivers. And then also I would add in Bo Nix. Could go in the first round, could not. There's 5 guys. Now let's talk about 2 running backs. These 2 running backs being Trey Benson, Jonathan Brooks. In this particular mock draft that we're talking about now, went 2-2-2-3. This is going to make your case pretty good, actually.
Yeah.
I think both are smart. We'll get there. The 2 running.
I was going to say, I was like, you're proving my point.
Add the two running backs. That's 7 people, 7 players. Okay, so if you're keeping track, I'm at 16, right?
Yep.
That's 16. So that's all the way to the 2-4, where you have, if everything goes best case scenario, you could have people up to the 2-4 getting first round draft capital. Guys, that's ridiculous. So obviously the answer is going to be somewhere in between there probably. It's probably going to be 11 or 12 guys that get first round draft capital, which means at the 110, at the 111, at the 112, odds are you are going to get a first round quarterback, a first round wide receiver, or a second or third round running back there. The odds of you getting one of those 3 assets this year at the 110, 112 is very, very good. And when you're looking again at where these are being valued in Dynasty, a first round quarterback this year is going to be ranked higher in Dynasty than Deebo Samuel and Kirk Cousins and Rashad White. A first round wide receiver is going to be ranked higher than assets like Devontae Adams, Rashee Rice right now, Mike Evans, Deebo, even probably Jaden Reed, right? Because Jaden Reed came in, he was a second round guy, wasn't ranked nearly as high. A second or third round running back is going to be ranked significantly higher than where the value adjacent guys to these picks are in Dynasty. So basically, if you buy the picks now, the odds are fairly good. Again, we had 16 guys, 9 for sure, split the difference, you're at 11 or 12. That's where my argument is made, because for you to, well, I shouldn't even be having this discussion, but for you to down tier to the 203, you would have to have everything go right to still be in a tier where you're drafting somebody with first round NFL draft capital value insulation. But at the 110, 111, 112, again, the odds are really good that you're going to get one of those 3 really good assets. And so I think that those 3 assets, again, are going to be ranked higher in Dynasty than where the picks are ranked when you're talking about market value and what you people are trading the picks for. Not to mention, a lot of people with early first and late first split the difference like they should, trade picks for proven players, etc. And you can get in on some of these things when people get antsy and they don't have anybody to sell to fairly cheap. But the depth of the value insulation, not just the depth of the talent. I'm less worried about the talent in Dynasty and more worried about the value insulation. The depth of the value insulation, odds are good. It's going to extend to the 111, 112 this year. And so when you buy those late first cheap, you're taking a very good shot on an asset that is likely to increase in value as soon as the NFL draft happens. We could know as early as night 1 how many of these, we will know as early as night 1 how many of these first round talents are going to be going in rookie drafts. That is why I am trading right now for 2024 late firsts. How did I build my argument?
Oh, I thought it was fine. I still stand where I stand on the argument is I'm not trading for late 24 first. I'm trading back from late 24 first for the exact reason that you made, which was once you get to the 110, you're looking at a tier of about 7 guys who are all going to be pretty relevant. And when someone, and this happens a lot, and it's feedback that I give most people when I do team blueprints for them when they have multiple picks, maybe in a rebuild or just in a situation where they have a ton of rookie pick value. I'm telling them, let's trade back from the rookie pick 110 and let's get into the early second range, or let's even get, a proven player if you can get an overpay post-draft or post-rookie draft, NFL draft, something like that. And if you want one of those team blueprints over at flockfantasy.com with customizable team advice, you get just that. Customizable team advice. Any team, any roster of your choice, when you go and sign up for the Mother Flocker tier with code DOMAIN, you just submit your roster into the Team Blueprints channel, and we give you all that feedback and more. Follow-up feedback, any questions that you have about the blueprint, we give all that to you. Plus, you get all of our exclusives. You get our ADP database, you get our rookie draft guide, and all the stuffs. Super great. But back to this idea of the late first versus the early seconds. We already know game theory wise, historically, that the quote unquote hit rate, which, up to your definition of hit rate, is pretty equivalent.
It's equal from the 110 to like the 203.
Mm-hmm. And let me just look at the two mock drafts that we're kind of referring to right now that we've done from this year. Ladd McConkey at the 110, Xavier Worthy at the 2.3, Bo Nix at the 2.4, Benson even at the 2.5. If those guys in the early second are going in that range, what do you expect their draft capital to be?
If
second round.
Right. I mean, yes, probably.
If Ladd McConkey is going at the 110, you're probably expecting him to be a guy that went early second, late first, maybe honestly. A good landing spot.
Yeah, like 30 through 32 pick. I think Ladd would go there.
So which one at price would you rather have?
So that's
you don't have to answer the question. It's kind of rhetorical.
So that's kind of a loaded question, because like for value insulation, I'd probably rather have a first round wide receiver. Even though you're splitting hairs with the dynasty community, a lot of times like they really do take that into account. But I think we can agree on this. You're saying you're trading back, but I'm saying if you don't have a first, you could do both.
Let me do you one better too. Let's play the what if game. What if Xavier Worthy is going at the 2.3 because he went in the first round of the Baltimore Ravens? He has the same draft capital, maybe even better. And he just fell because of the landing spot. This is kind of the case that I'm making for every class, every single year for the most part. Even though this is a potentially especially loaded, not potentially, it is an especially loaded class offensively. And we know there's a lot of talent and we know there's a lot of hype around the class. At the end of the day, the tiers are going to fall where I expect the tiers to fall, because they do every single year. The guys with the ideal landing spots, with the ideal draft capital, are generally a range of 6 to 7 guys. Why do we have a tier break after the 107? Because we know that those top 3 to 4 QBs and those top 3 wide receivers are locked in. 100%. And there's no other players that are going after them that I'm taking over those top 7 guys.
Yeah,
that's pretty standard across the board. What did we see last year? Same sort of thing. Stroud, Bryce Young, Anthony Richardson as your top 3 QBs. Levis, who could have gone first round, ended up not because of circumstances. Not a chance that you were ever thinking about taking him over any of those other guys. There's also the wide receivers that went in that range last year. Jackson Smith and Jigba, so we're at 4.
He was going earlier than that. He
was
not making it to the 110.
What?
JSN was not going at the 110.
No, I'm talking about the guys that were going top 6 to 7.
Okay. Fine.
JSN, Zay Flowers,
QJ.
Jordan Addison, Quentin Johnson. We're already at 7. What about Dalton Kincaid, first round draft capital? Were you taking Kincaid, who went, I think, 19th overall? Are you taking Kincaid over any of those first 7 guys? Oh, yeah, and Gibbs and Bijan Robinson. That's 9 guys. That's 9 guys. What ended up happening to that class? There was a significant teardrop once we got to the 110, not because there was lack of talent. Kincaid was going there. Levis was going there, who had a good landing spot in the early second round.
But second round draft
Zach
capital.
Charbonnet had second round draft capital as a running back too. Guess what? Another poor landing spot. Look, this is all theoretical, in my opinion. This is all theoretical. We can say, hey, I really want this 110. I think it's going to be loaded. I think it's going to have a great talent, a great player. I completely agree. I think you're going to get a really good player there. But at the end of the day, this is theoretical, because we are always talking in a context of ideal landing spots. Really. Like, I mean, even a guy like Rome Odunze, you've heard time and time again how low people would be on Rome Odunze if he goes to the Giants. That is absolutely a possibility.
Yeah.
100%. And there's always some give and take there, because you're going to have guys like McConkey who maybe fall further than we expect. You're going to have guys like Trey Benson, who's going in mock drafts in the early second, who's probably going to rise. There's always give and take.
But not all of those are going to happen. And you just proved my point, actually, because I talked about specifically the 110 through the 112. Last year at the 110 to 112, so we can talk about how that class is not even close to comparable to this class. Were you getting just answer yes or no, first-round quarterback in the 110 through 112 last year?
No. Are you this year for a fact?
There is a much greater chance this year that's happening than last year.
Are you sure about that?
Yes, I am 100% sure about that.
Okay.
I'm 100% sure, because last year there were less relevant quarterbacks that were likely to get. So again, let's go through the 3 positions I mentioned. First round quarterback, are you going to get that 110 through 112 last year?
No.
A first round wide receiver, did you get that 110 through 112 last year?
Yes.
Who?
Addison.
No, you didn't.
Yes, he was not popular.
No, you absolutely did not.
Yes.
No, you didn't.
100%.
His ADP, that is factually incorrect.
Count with me. Yeah, that is factually correct.
It's not, dude.
Yes.
By the time you got to the 110, Addison was gone. Those 4 receivers went 1-6, 1-7, 1-8, 1-9. Like that was their ADP. You can look it up. I know for a fact you were not getting at the 110. You were taking Achane, who was a 3rd round running back. Again, I'm talking about a running back with 2nd round draft capital.
Achane was falling early 2nd.
I mean, in some drafts, yeah, but I saw him go 110, 111 all the time. Like, people absolutely reached on him.
Richardson, Stroud, Bryce Young, JSN, Gibbs, Bijan, QJ, Flowers was more popular than Addison, and then your choice of Addison, Kincaid, Charbonnet.
Nobody was taking Kincaid over Addison, and you can check the ADP. That's factually incorrect. Addison was not. There was a teardrop after the receivers, and it was Kincaid, Levis, and Achane.
Yeah.
100% sure.
Kincaid, Levis, and Charbonnet.
And you notice I didn't mention 1st-round tight ends in this range because 1st-round tight ends, it doesn't really matter unless they go early first like Bowers might. And a first-round tight end is not near as valuable.
So then list to me the guys last year who were going in the early 2nd that ended up being huge hits. Or the 2nd period.
I mean, who are they? You tell me. Like, I'm not the one advocating
Downs,
for the 2nd round.
Reed, Laporta, Achane was going 2nd round. You did see, you're right, in the same tier, Kincaid sometimes going in the 2nd round. That's already 5 guys that I've mentioned.
But again, my specific point was the 110 through the 112. This year, you have a higher likelihood of getting one of those 3 positions I mentioned with the 3 draft capital than you did last year. It's not even relatively close because of the guys up front that are pushing all of those guys down the board, which speaks to the depth of this class. But not to mention, you could do both. You could trade for the 110 and then trade back, like you said. Like, I'm talking about if you don't have any late first, trade for a late first.
I'd rather just trade for the cheaper option where I'm getting a guy that is going to be in the same tier.
But again, the only way you're going to get somebody in the same tier, 2-1 to 2-4, is if all of those scenarios play out. Again, this is what we know. This is best case scenario.
I think we're arguing the same thing, and we're ending up with different outcomes because you're saying the depth of the class is going to result in you getting a better option at the 110, and I'm saying the depth of the class is going to result in you getting an even better option at the 2-3.
It does.
It's the same thing.
It's not, though, because you're talking about 1st-round draft capital versus not 1st-round draft capital, most likely. And that's a completely different animal.
Not necessarily. If, like you said, there's more people being estimated to go into the 1st round, guess who's going to be the fallers for the people that go in the 1st round? The ones who don't get the landing spots that you wanted.
Betting on a 1st-round talent at the 2-3 is a lot riskier than betting on it at the 111. You would admit.
No.
Yes,
No. It's less risky when you invest in a player who has good draft capital and you're investing in them at a cheaper price. I'd rather invest in someone who's in the same tier at a cheaper price at the
as you
2-3 than at the 110.
As you add people that could potentially get 1st-round draft capital, the odds decrease that it's actually going to happen. So if there are 16 potential ones, the odds are it's going to be somewhere between 9 and 16. The odds are usually somewhere in the middle. So as you go up, like, the odds that there's going to be one more 1st-round draft capital. Okay, like, that's good. That's less good. That's less good. That's even less good. As you go up, you naturally have more risk associated with. And again, the difference is last year it was like you're talking about the difference between a 2nd, 3rd-round talent and a 2nd or 3rd-round talent. This year, the point I'm making is from the 110 to 112, you're talking about potentially a 1st-round talent and then dropping down to the 2nd and 3rd-round talents. That's the difference. Last year, you were drafting. There were no 1st-round.
But look at this talent here. If Penix and McCarthy, if you have 5 QBs going in the 1st round,
they all
Penix,
went first.
McCarthy, Worthy, there you go. Look, the running backs haven't even gone, and we've been talking up Benson and Brooks.
And again,
why would I not trade back into the early 2nd if I can get Benson and Brooks?
You can. I'm not saying it's a bad idea at all. But I'm saying acting like this is a bad idea and you should only do this, there's a lot more risk doing this than there is going up to the late first, because in the late first you have maybe a 75% chance of getting a 1st-round QB, wide receiver, or 2nd-round running back, where at the 2-3 you maybe have a 30% chance of that happening. So if what you can do is, even if you want to tier down, you can still tier down after you...
So then we're ignoring the elephant in the room, and what happens when you trade back? You get assets on top.
Sure.
So sure, maybe it's more risky if you're taking guys that go lower. That's the game. Players that go lower in drafts have more risk to them, obviously.
But you're going to have to get a lot of...
Do you want the extra assets and the extra return to spread out your value, to diversify your value? Or do you want to take your one shot on a single player one time at the 110?
I mean, I don't think the quantity of assets always means...
I'd rather take Brooks plus. Easy, 100%.
I mean, the quantity does not outweigh quality. If you're getting a 1st-round talent and you're down tiering to a 2nd round, like, it doesn't really matter how many players there are. It matters...
If Penix goes late first... he's going there in that mock draft. He'll
Sure.
be going
Yeah.
110 to 112. I'd rather take the second round running back.
Then Penix?
Yes.
In a Superflex league?
I'd rather take the best rookie running back in this class
what's
than
more,
take
but what's
the
more,
fourth or fifth
if that
best
happens, though, what's more
QB.
likely to happen is Penix is going to get pushed down. The running back would jump Penix if they got
Well, it
second
depends. I
round
mean,
draft capital.
if he goes late first and goes to like, and again, now we're starting to think theoretical with like, what are some of the landing spots? So if he goes late first to the Vikings, right? Or if he goes late first to a team in the early second that
All
trades
right,
up.
find common ground with me. The 110 through 112 has a higher potential of getting a first round talent there than it had in years past.
Sure. I think that's fair.
Which again, if that happens, it does push better.
It's a deep. It's a deep class.
I'm not at
There's a
all
reason
avoiding the
it's very
2-3.
offensively
I'm just
rich,
saying you
so.
can get a first round talent cheaper than you normally would be able to here. I'm all on board for still trading down. Like if you can get, especially if you can get a good amount on top.
Right.
I like both because I like trading for the late first, and then you can tear down if you need to. But again, like how
So
often?
you're saying trade into the 110 now so that it increases in value after the draft, so you have the flexibility to trade back if you want to.
Because it would be better to own this before the draft than after. Because if that does happen, like we predict it will, after the draft, this is going to be a lot more expensive to buy. But if you have this, as soon as we have 9-10 players get that draft capital, you see a big value bump.
I think that's where you're like 100% confident, and I have my questions.
That there are going to be even 10?
Yeah, I'm always worried about the teardrop because I'm always worried about how the market reacts to.
But if that's
landing
true, then that
spots.
plays into my argument more because the 2-3 would be a lot weaker. The 2-2, 2-3 would be a lot weaker but you still have a decent shot at the 110 to get a first round talent.
Yeah, but you're right. First round talent, we're talking in circles here, but the first round talent's going at the end of the first. The reason they're probably going at the end of the first and not even earlier is probably because of the landing spot. So would you rather take that guy with the poor landing spot or the guy who has lesser draft capital going in the early second?
And again, I think if you trade for the 110 and you get that value jump as soon as the draft happens, then somebody's going to overpay for it. You either A, take a first round talent, or B, you trade back to where you're talking about and you get a huge value win.
Yeah.
So
we saw people overpay for early seconds just as much though too, even in weaker
yeah,
classes.
it's just as soon as the 2 goes by that name though, it's like people, even when early seconds are actually like legitimately valuable, as soon as the 2 goes by that name, people are like automatically willing to pay. The 112 and the 201, like, are they really that different? No, but do people value them really differently? Typically, yes. But again, the difference is they should probably be adjusting for these too. I think you could make the exact same argument for early seconds. But I don't think that just because that's true doesn't mean that this isn't true as well. That's kind of my point. I think they're both true. I think they can be true independent of each other. But I doubt if you're getting a first round talent at the 2-3, then the player you're getting at the 110 is
in first round talent. You can obviously qualify day 2 draft capital running back, one of the top running backs, because that's essentially first round talent.
But playing in this goes back like if your scenario happens and you get that player at the 2-3, you get your pick of those 6 players at the 110, and there's some value to that too.
And I know, but with the historical hit rate of that range, I'd rather just take whoever's
and again,
available because I think
I know the historical hit rate, and I'm just saying like this class is deeper than we've seen deeper than the classes that were covered in that analysis. So I'm slightly adjusting, but again, you would admit if you trade for the 110 now and you get a first round quarterback there, the value jump that you get as soon as draft night's over is immense. They're not being drafted in this range on keep trade cut
I've seen crazier things happen. I mean, we just saw a few years ago in one of the most loaded QB classes in the history of ever, Mac Jones, the 5th best QB who got top 15 draft capital, and he was going early second. Yeah. Why? Because he was the 5th best quarterback in the class. Yeah. Even though he got first round draft capital. You get what I'm saying there?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So again, I think they're both
I think they're both true. Class, that was really, if you wanted to talk about a deep class in terms of current value, would be the 2021 class. Because you had first round talents that were falling to the second rounds. So which
again, I think that is totally plausible. I think there are second round guys that could end up pushing the first. I don't dislike that move. I just don't think it negates this. I agree with you. I just think that I think my point is still true about buying late first. Like I think there's still a demand.
I think our points could both be true.
Well, they definitely are. Like if you buy a late second now, are you getting a value win most likely after the draft?
Yeah, that's why we tell people to buy late second.
You're getting a value win in both places. Like, I mean, I think
you get more of a value win if you trade back from the 110.
But you have to have the 110 first. That's my point. Like trade for the 110.
If you guys want a team blueprint and want our personalized feedback on your team, go ahead and go do that over at flockfantasy.com/domain. You have to use code domain. Sign up for the Mother Flocker tier. You'll get one of these awesome things. Again, it's called a team blueprint, and we'll give you all the feedback in the world, all the feedback that you want, and all this rookie draft and all this rookie draft stuff and this game theory. And you get to your rookie draft and you're live and you're like, hey, I'm on the clock. Who do I take here? Here's my situation. We will help you out with all of that. So if you want that and more, then head over to flockfantasy.com/domain. You got me all worked up.
You had me hot when you said the Addison thing. I was like, no, like, because I especially, there was no way I was taking Kincaid over Addison last year. Although not a bad pick.
I saw you don't remember Addison being super.
I think it happened. But I'm talking about consensus ADP
yeah.
Addison ended up. So that had me cooking.
You had me cooking too.
You had me cooking.
You had me cooking.
All right, see you guys later.